In a world addicted to velocity, where noise equals value and silence is mistaken for absence, there exists a rare kind of strength that almost no one notices. It doesn't clamor for attention, it doesn't parade its worth. It just exists, calm, grounded, and immovable. This is the strength of the still mind, the quiet soul, the one who listens more than they speak and understands far more than they reveal. And though society overlooks them, labels them too quiet, too distant, or hard to read, they are often the most rooted people in the room, because while others race to be seen, they are busy seeing. While others talk to be heard, they are learning how to hear. From early life, we're taught to equate silence with deficiency. A quiet child must be shy. A silent adult must be uncomfortable or unsure. Someone who doesn't speak up in meetings must not be confident. But these assumptions are wrong, profoundly wrong. Quiet doesn't mean confused, stillness doesn't mean stuck, and restraint doesn't mean fear. In fact, it takes far more strength to hold silence with intention than it does to speak without depth. Because noise is easy, it's instant, it's reactive, it fills space. But stillness is earned. Only the grounded can hold it. Only the deeply rooted can resist the compulsion to fill every gap with sound. There's a space inside every person that no one else can touch, not friends, not parents, not even lovers. It's the room where our truest self lives. But most people never visit it. They stay in the outer rooms, the parts of themselves that interact with the world, the polished versions, the agreeable masks, the performative personalities. But the quiet person? They spend time in that inner room, not to escape the world, but to understand it, to meet themselves in a place no applause can reach, to hear their own voice before responding to others. They know something loud. People often forget, without solitude, your soul becomes a stranger to itself. It's easy to underestimate someone who doesn't interrupt, who pauses before answering, who doesn't feel the need to dominate a room. But that pause, that space between stimulus and response, that's where wisdom lives. Because real insight doesn't rush. It waits, it listens, it filters the noise to catch what others miss. The loud reacts, and the quiet observe. And observation, over time, becomes intuition. That's why the quiet one in the room often knows when something is wrong. Before anyone else does, they've trained their awareness. They don't chase energy, they sense it. Society values constant output. Produce more, post more, speak more, be visible, be loud, be on. But few ask, what does all that cost? It costs depth, it costs discernment, it costs presence. Because when you're always reacting, you stop reflecting. When you're always broadcasting, you forget how to receive. The quiet mind, on the other hand, protects its energy. It knows that time spent in silence is not lost, it's refined. While others seek attention, the quiet one seeks alignment. Not because they're better, but because they know what's sacred cannot be found in chaos. Here's what's hard: being misunderstood in a world that only understands volume. Being asked, "Why are you so quiet?" As if stillness is a symptom to cure. But you don't owe the world your noise. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your quiet. Your depth is not a deficiency, it's a discipline. And those who can't sit in their own silence will always fear those who can. Let them fidget, let them misunderstand, let them chase every echo and call it connection. You stay grounded, stay home within yourself. You don't need to be louder, you just need to remain true. Some people walk away to escape, others walk away to reconnect. Distance is often mistaken for withdrawal, but healthy distance is a form of wisdom. It allows you to reset, to hear again, to see clearly. When a quiet soul pulls back, it's not because they've given up. It's because they're gathering something. They don't chase energy, they sense it. Society values constant output. Produce more, post more, speak more, be visible, be loud, be on. But few ask, what does all that cost? It costs depth, it costs discernment, it costs presence. Because when you're always reacting, you stop reflecting. When you're always broadcasting, you forget how to receive. The quiet mind, on the other hand, protects its energy. It knows that time spent in silence is not lost, it's refined. While others seek attention, the quiet one seeks alignment. Not because they're better, but because they know what's sacred cannot be found in chaos. Here's what's hard: being misunderstood in a world that only understands volume. Being asked, "Why are you so quiet?" As if stillness is a symptom to cure. But you don't owe the world your noise. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your quiet. Your depth is not a deficiency, it's a discipline. And those who can't sit in their own silence will always fear those who can. Let them fidget, let them misunderstand, let them chase every echo and call it connection. You stay grounded, stay home within yourself. You don't need to be louder, you just need to remain true. Some people walk away to escape, others walk away to reconnect. Distance is often mistaken for withdrawal, but healthy distance is a form of wisdom. It allows you to reset, to hear again, to see clearly. When a quiet soul pulls back, it's not because they've given up. It's because they're gathering something: energy, clarity, truth. They've learned that sometimes the only way to see the world is to step outside of it, not to judge, but to realign. It's easy to feel invisible when your gifts aren't loud, when your value isn't performative, when your presence isn't theatrical. But being unseen does not mean being unworthy. Some of the deepest roots grow underground for years. Before a single leaf is visible, your stillness is working, your inner growth is real. Even if no one claps for it. You are not invisible. You are simply undetected by those who only look at the surface. And that's okay. Let them miss it. Some things are meant to be recognized only by those who know how to truly see. And yet, meaning is rarer than ever. The more we speak, the less we hear. The more we rush, the more we miss. The more we chase, the more lost we feel. We are overstimulated and undernourished, surrounded by noise, yet starving for truth. But that's why you matter. That's why your quietness isn't just personal, it's cultural. You are modeling another way, a slower way, a way rooted in being, not proving. And that's radical. At the center of every storm is a point of calm, a still center, a grounded axis. Be that. In chaos, be still. In noise, be clear. In urgency, be slow. Because in the end, power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it watches, sometimes it waits. But when it acts, it does so from alignment, not pressure. That is the strength of the still mind. Stillness is so often confused with stagnation. We live in a culture that equates movement with progress. If you're not climbing, you must be falling. If you're not loud, you must be lost. If you're still, you must be stuck. But nothing could be further from the truth. Stillness isn't the absence of growth. It's the environment where growth becomes possible. A seed doesn't scream as it transforms. A mountain doesn't announce its strength. A tree doesn't make noise when it deepens its roots. Progress, in its truest form, often happens beneath the surface, silently, gently, away from applause. So when the world demands that you move faster, speak louder, and appear busier, remember, stillness is not the opposite of momentum, it is the origin of it. Some people show their strength by standing tall, others show it by not collapsing when no one is watching. That's the quiet kind, the kind the world rarely celebrates. They don't need recognition to keep going. They don't need external energy to hold their own. they endure silently. And that endurance is its own kind of rebellion. They carry what others would crumble under. They keep showing up when no one says thank you. They bear the weight of rooms too loud to notice them. And maybe that's the real test of strength. To stay soft in a hard world, to stay still when the ground shakes, to stay inward when everything outside demands reaction. This resilience isn't loud, but it is undeniable. The quiet mind often gets misunderstood as distant, withdrawn, disengaged. But there's a difference between walking away and walking inward. Some people disappear to disconnect. Others disappear to reconnect with themselves. That return to the self is not abandonment of the world. It is an act of return, a ritual of repair. Because in the noise of modern life, we forget how to hear our own thoughts, our preferences, our boundaries, our truth. So when a quiet person steps back, don't assume they're lost. They might be finding something most people never even search for, a home within themselves. The world teaches us to react, quickly, instinctively, emotionally, publicly. Someone insults you, respond immediately. Someone misunderstands you, explain yourself. Someone provokes you, prove them wrong. But the quiet mind doesn't rush. It doesn't dance on command. It holds its ground, and that restraint, that dignity of non-reactivity, it's not weakness, it's mastery, because not every comment deserves an answer. Not every misunderstanding needs correction. Not every insult requires retaliation. Sometimes, silence is the highest expression of self-respect. Sometimes, stillness is the loudest message you can send. And the person who can choose not to react has already won the inner battle. Here's the thing about quiet people. They've often spent years trying to explain themselves, to defend their silence, to soften their seriousness, to justify their stillness in a world obsessed with noise. But one day, something shifts. They realize they don't need to be understood to be whole. They don't need to translate their truth to be valid. They don't need to contort themselves into louder shapes to feel seen. Because understanding, when it comes, is a gift, not a requirement. And when that realization lands, something beautiful happens. They stop performing. They stop shrinking. They stop editing themselves for comfort. They begin to belong, not to others, but to themselves. In fast-paced rooms, people listen to reply. The quiet mind listens to understand. That's presence. It doesn't just sit in a chair while scrolling through thoughts. It lands in the moment with full weight. It notices the subtle shifts in energy, the pauses between words, the emotions that others hide. And because of that presence, the quiet person often knows things they were never told, feels things that no one said, sees things that others miss. Not because they're magic, but because they are here. Fully, deeply, unshakably here. And in a world that's constantly somewhere else, presence is power. Silence has layers. There's the silence of fear, where someone doesn't speak because they're afraid. There's the silence of suppression, where someone's voice has been stolen or ignored. And then, there is the silence of choice, the kind that comes from knowing you could speak, but don't need to. The kind that isn't born of insecurity, but of intention. The kind that doesn't crave attention, but clarity. This silence isn't hollow, it's full of awareness, of boundaries, of power. And when you meet someone who holds that kind of silence, you feel it. It doesn't ask for respect, it commands it. Leadership doesn't always look like speeches, spotlights, and charisma. Sometimes it looks like steadiness in chaos, patience in uncertainty, listening before deciding. Quiet people often become reluctant leaders, not because they seek power, but because their presence creates safety. People feel calmer around them, more heard. more grounded. They don't lead from ego. They lead from insight. And though they may not chase leadership, leadership often finds them. Because in rooms full of noise, people instinctively move toward those who don't need to shout. The world has a blind spot. It rewards performance and punishes pause. It sees expression as strength and silence as weakness. But in doing so, it misses entire dimensions of value. It overlooks the child who reads quietly while others perform. It underestimates the colleague who speaks little but sees everything. It misreads the person who prefers depth over display. And in that blindness, it creates a kind of cultural loneliness, where people who live inward lives feel like they don't belong. But let this be a reminder. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too much or not enough. You are simply living by a different rhythm, one the world forgot how to hear. If you have cultivated stillness, you will be tested, not by your own doubt, but by the noise of others. They will question your pace. They will rush your process. They will try to stir your calm because your peace reminds them of their own disconnection. Your silence unsettles their chaos. Your clarity confronts their confusion. But remember, you are not responsible for their discomfort. You are not here to be more palatable. You are not a mirror. They must face themselves. Protect your peace the way a gardener protects soil, not with force, but with intention. Fence your time. Nourish your solitude. Honor your pace. Because the world will never stop demanding more from you, but you can stop giving away what's sacred. If this hit home, drop a comment. Subscribe to The Thought Foundry. Take care of your mind, and I'll see you in the next dive.